Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. U.S. military ramp up against Iran. Are the topics we discuss too negative? Legislators advising military personnel not to obey unlawful orders. Netanyahu's 7th visit with the Donald, and more. Happy to have you along. Dr. Scott Bradley's in the house. freedomsrisingsun.com is the website. He does his weekly Q&As on the Constitution every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Mountain. You go to freedomsrisingsun.com to get your ticket to ride. You can join. You can ask questions. Otherwise, you can watch it later. You can do so on, BitChute and Rumble and places like that. You can check it out. Look for Freedom's Call is the best way to find that. Check it out, freedomsrisingsun.com. Dr. Bradley, welcome back, sir.
Well, thank you, Sam. Glad to be here. Good morning to everyone. This Friday the 13th, by mentioning it, I probably give it more preeminence than it certainly deserves, but I'm just a little bit shocked at how often it becomes the center of conversation, on Friday the 13th. And I guess I bring it up and make it the center of conversation, but let's get it behind us if we need to.
Let me tell you how it is. You can say Friday the 13th is an unlucky day and there's no 13th floor on the elevator. And, I've gone through the history about that. I argued with a lady at a hotel one time where it went from floor 12 to 14. And I said, where's 13? And she said, it's not there. And I said, is there an empty hole? Does the elevator go twice as far when it skips 13? She goes, of course not, sir. We don't have an empty space, an empty floor. I said, well, then it doesn't exist, does it? Oh, anyway, kind of a strange conversation, but I like every day on the planet that God's given me. Friday the 13th, no exception. I don't believe in all that hocus pocus garbage. I do believe it's a freedom-loving, fantastic. We're taking America back, one heart, one mind, one issue at a time. Faith-filled Friday is what I like to think of, Doctor.
Yeah, and I think that's a great focus. And again, I guess I mentioned it just to know that you're going to hear a lot about it today, and maybe, take it with a grain of salt, because that's about all it's worth.
Yes, indeed. I'm not really a guy that believes in all kind of, this idea, don't walk near a ladder, don't do this, don't do whatever. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I believe that, we're on the earth. We're here to be tested, so there's challenges along the way. We're here to learn to obey God and to keep his commandments, and, that has a lot of challenges in it. Earth life is messy and difficult, and many times it's discouraging, and it's all up and down, and it's, a lot of wonderful things, but a lot of hard things. And, one guy I know compared it to a train ride where it's, a lot of grit and dust and smoke and everything else. But at the same time, there's beautiful vistas. And, you got to kind of realize that, hey, life isn't meant just to be a big old entertainment party. Life is really meant to help you learn and grow and practice and experience and make choices. And everyone has regrets because, we all make bad choices except for one, the Savior, Jesus Christ. We all make bad choices which set us back and everything else. But you know what? If we keep at it, there is a bright day, and it's coming. And the Savior's returning to the earth. And that's why people say, Sam, can we really save America? And my answer is no, we can't. There's too many wicked people and civilizations that chase fake money, dishonest money, which means every transaction has an element of dishonesty in it. Maybe not even by the parties involved, but by its very nature. And so as a result of that wickedness and that evil, you know what? The country's going to melt down. And that's a sad tale to tell, but it's true. Now, I do think we can hold on to the Constitution. I do think it will hang by a thread and be very, very, very precarious. But I do believe that we can prepare people for the Savior to return. And that's really what this nation was born and created for, is to prepare a people for Christ and his return. And so in my mind, I'm not looking to talk to, 360 million Americans, the masses, or 8 billion people on the planet or whatever. I'm looking for those to listen to us and those to, surround us who want to improve their lives, who believe that agency is at the core and we must make wise choices. And then this whole broadcast, every day, our discussions are to help people understand what is the right way. how do we point to true north when it comes to God, family, and country? How do we, and I'm not perfect at it. I don't propose that I'm the leader that knows all, but I do propose that we as a people, if we gather together, if there's two gathered together in his name, he'll bless us. He'll guide us. He'll be amongst us, if you will, in spirit. And so I believe that's what we're trying to achieve here. We're really working on, hey, how do we improve our own lives and be the best people we can be, knowing that God can prosper our efforts if we keep his commandments? And how do we learn to not take credit for things but depend on God? And how do we learn to surround us with wonderful people? It's been said, hey, you're kind of ending up the sum of those whom you spend the most time with. You spend time with rich people and you probably end up rich someday. You spend time with perverted people, you'll probably end up perverted. You spend time with God-fearing, good, honest people who are chasing the same goals and dreams and hopes and as you are, if they're doing it right, then, hey, we lift all boats. And I kind of come from that ilk. I realize there's a lot of problems in the country. I realize there's a lot of bad things happening in the country. And I don't mean to dismiss those things in any way. But I do mean to have my viewpoint and my focus on them in, I hope, productive ways. Doctor, do you want to add to that?
Well, I think you have a lot of wonderful thoughts and everything. Just a little clarification on something you said a little bit earlier in that exchange. And you said it correctly, I think. We can save the Constitution. I think a lot of people say we will save the Constitution. And
I don't know if we will or not. It depends on how many of us step up to the plate, baby.
That's exactly right. That's the clarification I wanted to make, because while it is possible, and I think that, there's a great desire to do so by many of us, there's a huge desire to destroy it by those that are trying to either set it aside and rewrite a new one or just ignore it. And it's will we instead of.
Yeah, it's not a foregone conclusion. That's for sure.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Amen. Couldn't agree more. Now, you have an interesting topic that you guys discussed in your weekly Q&A webinars. Get your ticket at freedomsrisingsun.com. It's a free sign-up. He just wants to have the right people in the room so that it doesn't get shanghaied. That's why there's an invite ticket, ladies and gentlemen. But it is an open forum for those who want to ask questions and get great constitutional answers, and those who are basically taking their time to study the Constitution together and learn how to apply it in modern times. Sometimes the modern times discussions make it very hard to see true north on things unless you have somebody who's really educated in the Founding Fathers, their viewpoints, their understanding what drove them, what their concerns were. You got to get that contextual reality and then realize the Constitution isn't a living, breathing, changing, kind of at your whim document. It's as written and as intended, but understanding the Founding Fathers' fears and concerns and positives and negatives. And, they thought through it so well and documented all their efforts in ways that can help us look backwards as we move forward in very productive ways. And that's the reason that it's so important. But you've got this question, Doctor, are our topics too negative? Where did that come from?
That was the first question out of the blocks. And, really? It's easy to see how people could feel that way. But here's kind of the perspective. And I think it's important that we maintain an understanding based upon actual facts and principles. How can we correct something that we don't know about? It's pretty hard to do,
Amen. Sure.
And so the idea that if you're like, Pollyanna and sticking your head in the sand or whatever you want to, any analogy you want to draw on that thing, and all you want is hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil. Well, there's plenty of comedians out there that give you that. And it's not a joke. This life is real live business, and there's things to be done. And so, the bread and circuses concept, we talked a little bit about, we can spend our whole lives looking for the Super Bowl game or the March Madness or, the Olympics. All these things are very concurrent to what we're existing in right now. And it all comes back to if you can't understand the issues or won't understand them, it's the same thing. I mean, an ignorant vote is probably twice as dangerous as an informed vote, because your 50-50 chance of voting for the wrong direction of things is just a probability based upon chance. And then, I've got a bunch of aphorisms I keep at my desk here. And so I dragged one of them out and I quoted it. It's a Patrick Henry statement from March of 1775. Remember, we're a couple of weeks away, 3 weeks away from
the 250th.
But the thing is, 1775 was a kind of a watershed year that things started to come together. Lexington and Concord were only 2 or 3 weeks away when Patrick made this statement. It sounds like we've got to take a break, and maybe I can just remind the people what Patrick said then when we get back.
All right, hang tight, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live. Our goal is God, family, and country, and the promotion thereof. So hang tight. We got a lot of news the networks refuse to use with a good doctor straight ahead. freedomsrisingsun.com.
The Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit legal foundation committed to protecting our unalienable right to publicly acknowledge God. The Foundation for Moral Law exists to restore the knowledge of God in law and government and to acknowledge and defend the truth that man is endowed with rights not by our fellow man, but by God. The foundation maintains a twofold focus. First, litigation within state and federal courts. Second, education. Conducting seminars to teach the necessity and importance of acknowledging God in law and government. How can you help? Please make a tax-deductible contribution, allowing foundation attorneys to continue the fight. You may also purchase various foundation products as well at morallaw.org. Located in Montgomery, Alabama, the Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 founded by Judge Roy Moore. Please partner with us to achieve this important mission. morallaw.org.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
Okay, just before the break, we were talking about maybe sometimes people perceive subject matters to be a little bit gritty. I don't know that's a good term. We'll use that one.
Yeah, the question is, hey, is it too negative? Are the topics too negative is kind of the idea. And I'll answer this in just a second, but go ahead, sir.
Well, I mentioned Patrick Henry's statement, and how can we correct that which we don't know about it? I mean, it's purely happenstantial if it does get corrected, if that's the case. And I prefer not to leave things to happenstance when they're things of moment. So anyway, back in March of 1775, in his great Give Me Liberty, Give Me Death speech, he said, again, I pulled this out last night when the question came up, "We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth. For my part, I'm willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it. See, then we become masters of our own destiny. And if in fact we're want to stick our hand in the sand or be Pollyanna about it and just watch the bread and circuses as they parade before our eyes, and kind of leave it to someone else whose intentions may be more nefarious. I'm not saying everyone's intentions are, but quite frankly, we've got a lot of lessers that are in high positions that are really unraveling a lot of good things. And so I personally, for my own preference, I would rather be able to address issues and have something of a say in the outcome instead of just letting it happen to me. I'd rather act upon it rather than be acted upon. So that's kind of where I come from. And hopefully people use it as a harbinger, a word of warning, whatever you want to call it, and don't get overly discouraged or anything like that, but just say, here, we can take and do what we can take and do. And if everybody did that, I think it'd be a better place. So anyway, Sam, you thought you had some thought.
So here's my answer to the question. Are the topics we discuss too negative? Absolutely not. No, and no. They absolutely must be discussed. And if we don't discuss them, think through them, and learn proper north regarding them, we will lose our liberty. That is not something to go, oh, you can't talk about that. It's negative. No. My liberty's at stake, ladies and gentlemen. My children and my grandchildren and so on and so on, their liberty is at stake if I ignore those things, if I'm not willing to discuss them candidly. And most importantly, get to the truth of the matter, which oftentimes is pretty negative, especially in a modern fallen world, right? Now, with that said, unequivocally, the answer to the question is no. They must be discussed. However, I will say this. Sometimes it's how things are discussed that really make the difference, okay? And I'll give you some examples. Let's say that I was in the Founding Fathers era. Let's just cast our minds back there. And, when Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death, and others, debated this, and they said, no, we can't have a strong general government. And I said, I'm not willing to talk about these things. You guys are just too negative. I mean, give me liberty or give me death. What kind of wow, that, it's off the charts. It's crazy, Well, if I refuse to discuss it with them, I can't even be part of the solution, can I? All right, well, then eventually they had to compromise in the room to get the Constitution even passed and signed and put into the supreme law. Okay, that took some compromise. And so they had to give up their pure viewpoints or their agenda somewhat for that to occur. And so I could be the guy back in the time if I was a newspaper reporter, and I'm like, yeah, they all compromised and caved. They lied to us. They went back there and they were supposed to just, tinker around the edges, but they threw the whole thing out. They ought to be arrested as criminals. And so you can go negative on anything if you choose to. And pointing out the truth doesn't mean you go negative. One of the really ways we try to not go too negative is every time we bring up a problem, as negative as that problem may be, we provide solutions. Every time. We don't bring up problems without pointing out a better way, a solution. You can say, well, your solutions are bogus. Your solutions aren't realistic. You can say any negative thing you want, but how many talk shows bring a solution forward for every topic they discuss? And the answer is far too few. So if we talk about something that seems negative, but then we provide you a solution, I don't think it's negative. In fact, I think it's quite positive. You basically discuss a very uncomfortable truth. You power through it, and you look at it every way from, 6 ways from Sunday. And then at the end of the day, you provide a solution. I don't see that that's negative at all. However, if something is negative, you can also look at the positive side of things sometimes, right? So, one guy says, I had a horrible day. I dropped my phone in the snow and it got ruined. Then I got in a car wreck and, it's been a horrible day. And somebody else says, hey, better being 6 feet above ground because you're 6 feet tall than 6 feet underground. So sometimes it's how you look at things that matter. And I'll give you a couple of quick modern examples to make the point. Donald Trump's done a lot of things that I disagree with. A lot of things. And I warned everybody from the start when he came down the escalator in 2015, hey, this guy is a very liberal, inside wealthy guy. And he might be better than a lot, but he's not your magic bullet to solve everything. Barack wasn't your savior, and neither was Biden, and neither is Donald. So if you're thinking you're going to have a savior guy, forget it. Now, that doesn't mean that he hasn't done some good. Even though he's done a lot of unconstitutional things, he's expanded the power of the presidency or the executive branch way beyond my comfortability. That's for sure. However, he's done great things on the border, necessary things on the border. He's more pro-life than any president that I know of in my lifetime. Does that mean he's as pro-life as I want him to be? No, of course not. So what I like to do when we talk about negative and positive discussions is I don't pick people. I'm not here to down Donald. I'm not here to down Nancy Pelosi. I'm here to discuss principles and point people on principles to true north. And to the best of my ability, I'm here to be on the right side of principles. And I welcome anybody who wants to be on the right side with me. And if I happen to be on the wrong side of a principle, I hope that I'm humble enough to learn to change my opinion. Okay, it's not bad to change your opinion if you go from wrong to right, bad to good, right? Everybody feels like, oh, I can never change my opinion. I just got to stick to it forever. No, you don't. You got to embrace truth. You got to pursue it steadily. If you're wrong, you got to humble yourself and say, okay, you know what? I missed that one. I'm human. Just because I'm a talk show host, that doesn't mean that I know everything. Just because I'm a talk show host, that doesn't mean that everything I say is right or perfect or whatever else. But I do my very best, my very darndest to study hard, to work hard, to pray and get the guidance of Almighty God, to be humble and realize this discussion is not about Sam Bushman. Sam isn't a rock star. My whole goal, though, is to use this round table as a facilitating solution to the problems we face in our time. Like the founding fathers gathered in the taverns to discuss the principles of their day and the situations and the concerns and the, hey, which way's true north? How do we build? You know, they were very conscientious about this. How do we build a country that can go forward, that can look to God, not government? How do we learn to, bridle our passions? How do we learn to, and they worked at that hard and they discussed things. And okay, the modern day of that in my mind is like Liberty Roundtable Live, where we sit around, we discuss these things, we provide solutions, we issue warnings and concerns. We do so. And yes, a lot of the topics are negative. But if you end on a positive solution, a way forward, and if you basically look at to the best of your ability the bright side of situations a lot of times, I don't see that they're negative discussions. In fact, I think they might be difficult discussions. But hey, the birth of this nation was very difficult. They gave their blood, their fortunes, their sacred honors. They had death threats and were worried about even surviving it. That's pretty negative, people. But thank heavens they stuck to their guns. Thank heavens they compromised a little bit, but they really pointed out true north the best they could. Is it perfect? Can I find holes in it? Of course it's not perfect, and of course I can find holes in it. But it's the best thing we've got with a track record of solutions and history like nothing else. So anything else you propose to me that doesn't have the constitutional track record of a couple of 100 years, when we obey it, it's successful. When we don't, it goes bad for us. You're not going to get me to look at something else for a solution. You're just not. You can come back and say, I built the best mousetrap in the world. And I'd say, yeah, my mousetrap has history of a couple of 100 years, and yours is a great idea. But you know what? It doesn't have proof behind it. It doesn't have, and so we need to be very careful that we don't always look for solutions in the wrong places as well. And that's why we provide these warnings and things. So Dr. Bradley, I think a lot of times it's how we look at it is really important, and that we give credit where credit's due sometimes, and that we focus on at least the good the best we can so people leave with a little hope in their heart for solutions. And then most importantly, I think it's vital to map problems that we point out to solutions. I think very few people really do that. And that's really where I think we don't go too negative. We need to always be careful and on our guard about it, because it's easy to preach doom and gloom. It's hard to be positive and provide solutions. It's very difficult. And so anyway, I don't mean to go on forever about this, but I really thought that question was a great one and an important one. And I think that the next discussion you guys had relates exactly to that discussion.
Well, could we maybe just spend a moment or two on that again? Or
sure.
Let me tell you why. Where to go for this, because it's such a deep and wide possible track that we could go down.
Well, first off, what do you think of my response?
I think it's great, but I think we need to understand a temper to that. And I don't think you meant it in the wrong temper, certainly. But let me just give you an example. When I teach classes, sometimes we have disruptors that come when we have gatherings. And it sounds like we got to take another break right now, but my heavens, we're using up the whole time we've got together and we're hardly moving. But maybe a quick clarification, because I don't think all ideas are as good as some ideas. But we'll talk about that.
Well, all knowledge is not the same, and of course all ideas are not as good as some ideas. The idea to turn to Christ is the best idea, and all others pale in comparison when you really think about it that way. So you're right on that score. We'll dig in a little bit more, but the second question is closely related. You got all these Democrats saying, hey, don't obey unlawful orders. Now they're being criticized by Donald and by the Republicans and everything. But what do you mean don't obey? What are you talking? How you got to obey? All right, let's break that down too. It's closely related. We'll dig into it all. And we'll do it in seconds with Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. We are syndicated by Loving Liberty Networks, lovingliberty.net. Hold on, everybody.
Pursuing liberty, using the Constitution as our guide. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Inflation continues edging lower. The government reports consumer prices rose 2.4% last month from a year ago. That was down from December's 2.7% annual increase. Falling gas prices, lower housing costs played a big role in further cooling inflation. We're on the verge of another partial government shutdown. This time, only the Department of Homeland Security will be impacted. The Senate has failed to agree on a DHS funding package, leaving a midnight deadline in place. Police investigating the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie have expanded their search for surveillance camera footage.
Investigators in Tucson, Arizona are asking residents in a 2-mile radius of Nancy Guthrie's home to share videos going back a month before her disappearance. Saying anything out of the ordinary could be important to the investigation. Ann Adams, who lives next door to Guthrie's daughter Annie, says agents wanted to look around her property.
They did ask specifically for the 31st of January and the morning of the 1st of February. And then they wanted to know if we saw anything suspicious on our cameras.
Hopes were raised Tuesday after the FBI released surveillance videos showing a masked person outside Guthrie's front door. I'm Jennifer King.
It's a high-profile case, one that's considered likely to wind up before the Supreme Court.
President Trump and Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin have revoked the 2009 endangerment finding, which is a regulation by the Environmental Protection Agency that combats climate change. And it says that carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases endanger human health and the environment.
Correspondent Matthew Daly, the Trump administration says the rule led to a left-wing wish list of costly climate regulations. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 96 points, the Nasdaq 81 points in the red. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm, and Chuck McDowell, definitely not an attorney. This is Chuck. Do you feel stupid for buying a timeshare? Don't. It's not your fault. You were most likely told you could rent it, and it was a great financial investment. And the deal was available today only. If this happened to you, contact your resort or Wesley Financial Group for help today.
Call Wesley now for your free exit information kit. 800-242-3131. 800-242-3131.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. After my husband died, the last thing I wanted to think about was money. Ethos made it affordable to get life insurance. Signing up was fast and 100% online. I knew that I could pay our mortgage and have food in the fridge. I could focus on my kids. No one ever tells you how much you're going to depend on that policy. I am so grateful we had coverage.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/save. That's ethos.com/save. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcast at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
Being there with your child and being there for your child are two completely different things. One denotes a simple presence, which is a start, but can also be accomplished by someone other than you.
Hey, can you help me with this algebra problem?
See, that sheep did a fine job of being there with the child, but it didn't do a very good job of being there for the child. Now listen to the difference an involved parent can make.
Hey, can you help me with this algebra problem?
I'm not very good at algebra, but do you have any English questions? 'Cause I done real good in English.
Oh, Mom.
Okay, let's take a look.
Okay, so the algebra problem didn't get solved, but something better happened. Mom was there for her child, and when you're really there, they'll know how much you care. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For more tips on strengthening your family, visit family.mormon.org.
Are you there, Dr. Bradley? Welcome, sir.
I am here. Did you just want me to take up where we left off?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I was telling a little tale. I'll be brief with it. But I was making a presentation on constitutional principles right directly out of the Constitution. We had some disruptors that had been sent by their advanced placement, history class or American problems class from the local high school. And they had planted themselves in the audience, and they were busily shouting out questions from the audience without waiting for even an answer. They just wanted to be noisy, and they didn't want answers. And finally, I asked them, so what are you guys looking for? And they said, we have better ideas than the American founders, and we want to implement our ideas. I mean, they're good little Nazi, communist, socialist, whatever kinds of toads, and they had better answers than the American founders. And I says to this one girl, I says, how old are you? And she says, 16. I says, how long has it been since you finally got to be able to cross the road without somebody holding your hand? Because they were not very far beyond that range. And in their arrogant little minds, they had decided they had better ideas than the American founding fathers. We have plenty of those putzes in this nation today. And we have people that are wanting to throw out and have their voice heard, and ultimately and finally they will throw out the founding principles. The principles we've got are tried and true. When this nation was being founded, we had some very eloquent, powerful, highly knowledgeable individuals that had different opinions, yes. I mean, there was the Greeks with democracy, there was the Romans with the republic, and, all sorts of things could be brought up. A bicameral or a unicameral kind of Congress, all those kinds of things. They had to debate, discuss those. But they were finding their way under the inspiration of God, and they admitted that. And so what happened was a magnificent coming together. But there was some things that were still needed to be done when they got done with the convention, and there became an extreme debate. Are we going to ratify this Constitution or not? And those that were against it, it came down basically, there was a lot of issues, but it doesn't have a Bill of Rights. The anti-federalists had that perspective. And the Federalists who'd been in the convention said, no, we didn't give enough power to the general government to take away any of your rights. Anyway, there was a discussion. These individuals were willing to pursue the answers, and I'm so grateful that the anti-federalists prevailed on the Bill of Rights. And we've got that. Look what a mess they've made out of things, even with a Bill of Rights. But these baseline principles are tried and true. They're proven. And when we get putzes like these 16-year-old kids that came to disrupt the class, or we get individuals that go before the legislatures of states across the nation attempting to basically rewrite the Constitution with a blank check, and they say, we got better answers. Well, you look at their answers, and so far, most of them are trying to re-implement the failed formula of the Articles of Confederation, which is the first Constitution that they found was inadequate. So I'm concerned that if people don't know those baseline principles, if they can't find that true north you've talked about, and they think that they're going to decide north really is west or whatever, and they're going to take people out through the wilderness, it's not a good time to do that. We have, we're in the 21st century, and we have got a lot of competing concepts that have been highly marketed and organized against true principles of liberty. We've got, Marx's manifesto. We've got Mein Kampf. We've got, we've got all sorts of social democracy things. We've got Keynesian, economics. We've got Alfred Kinsey with the sexual revolution. We've got all these kinds of competing ideas that are really, truly Johnny-come-lately failure formulas. Everything
you say is true. Everything you say is true. The question is, how do you deliver that in the most positive, credible, reality-based delivery? You can do it and go too negative, or you can do it by being real and providing solutions. And that's kind of the point that I'm making to the people asking the questions to you, is that, we're willing to dig in. We're willing to deal with and acknowledge the truth. We're willing to teach to the ideal, knowing that we live in the real, doing our very best to bring the real closer by every day to the ideal. We need all the friends we can get in doing so. Your points are valid, completely valid. I don't think that takes away from trying to be positive about it or solution-oriented or give credit when credit's due, though. I think we can do both, Doctor.
Well, if you're trying to throw away my Constitution, I'm going to get a little bit testy with you. And that's the problem we've got, is that these people, Ron DeSantis was brought up by the Constitution Convention people to try and counter two presentations I'd made to two legislators, and not legislators, legislatures. And so Ron DeSantis, here's this big gun, if you will, a potential presidential candidate, and a lot of gravitas, and everybody's bowing and scraping and everything like that. But he wants to junk my Constitution. It's your Constitution. It's our grandchildren's Constitution. And if, in fact, they're there with sophistries and platitudes and delusions to try and tell something needs to be done to a legislature, and those legislators react improperly because of the presence of somebody that's as august and respected as he is, we're making a big mistake. That's why I think we've got to be able to, stand tall, tell the story, understand it, and be able to defend it.
I agree 100%. And that's why when we talk about these topics, I think we do need to dig in. We do need to defend. That's why I say, hey, you come up with other solutions that aren't constitutional, and I'm going to oppose you because we have a 200-year track record plus that when we obey it, it works. When we don't, it doesn't. And we know that grand old experiment has proven successful to create the freest, greatest country on the planet. And so when you want to point to the principles that can return us to that, we're in. When you want to point us elsewhere, look, going after a squirrel or whatever you want to say, whatever the latest, crisis of the day is, the latest disruption of the day, we're going to oppose that. The difference, in my opinion, is how we oppose it. Do we attack people, individuals, or do we stick with the principles and attack when principles are wrong, saying this is a communist socialist principle? I think one of the great ways to civility, one of the great ways to not go too negative, in addition to always providing solutions, is to say, look, we're not going to attack people. So let's just take, for example, this next issue. Okay, this next issue directly relates to, hey, all these Democrats are telling the troops not to obey unlawful orders. Now, when the shoe's on the other foot, the Democrats are like, oh my gosh, you're not going to obey? You have to obey. When it's their turn, they don't obey. But let's get to the truth on this, Doctor. Nobody should obey unlawful orders, period, end of paragraph. It's unlawful. That is the principle. That is the issue. You should not carry out unlawful orders under any circumstances. Doctor, let's start there, because I think that's how we really learn to focus on the principles. I don't care who's on what side of this issue. I don't want to follow unlawful orders. I don't want to follow against the supreme law of the land orders. I won't do it. That's the principle, right?
Here's the deal. Let's go back and do a little backstory on this in case people haven't heard about it. In November, 6 Democrats, senators and congresspeople, brought out a 90-second video, and it said, don't follow unlawful orders. They didn't specifically say this one's unlawful and this one is lawful. They just said, don't follow unlawful orders. And Trump, in his absolute blustering manner, wants them hanged. He literally does. J.D. Vance has basically said it's treasonous and these people could face the death penalty. There's been a lot of Republicans that have come out against this kind of thing. But by definition, an unlawful order is illegal. And if it violates the baseline principles, it's not to be followed. But here's the deal. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 14 of the Constitution delegates to the Congress the authority to make the rules that operate the military. They made the rules. They created the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's and we could give long discussion about what that is, but it's how the legal backing of the military operations. They have military tribunals, and they have courts and all those kinds of things under that. And it says specifically there, you do not obey unlawful orders. There's also, there's international protocols about prisoners of war and war crimes and all those kinds of things. By default, they are unlawful orders if they execute prisoners of war and all this kind of stuff just willy-nilly. And so what these people said in their 90-second video was what the law says. And are we having to take another break for crying out loud?
Yes,
Man.
sir. You talked for a long time, buddy. Hang tight.
No,
We'll take
that's
a break.
Bravo
Come straight
Sierra.
back and do
Who's-
it. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at CSPOA.org. That's CSPOA.org.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines. Build a strong cyber attack response. Secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, indeed, Dr. Bradley is long-winded. He's only probably beat by me. I'm as long-winded as anyone, for sure. And I talk probably more than he does. But I want to make this point. I joked about, yeah, you took the whole time, Dr. Bradley. I'm just kidding. The truth is, folks, listen, I can do 2-minute video sound bites all day. I could probably whip out, 50 of them a day. But they don't educate. They're great headlines. I can tell you how I feel. I can maybe make something go viral, but it doesn't do the hard work. Okay? The long-form talk radio format allows getting into the trenches, allows the hard work of education to be achieved. Dr. Bradley's 100% right to tell you this backstory about, there's confusion when they say don't obey unlawful orders. They're right. I don't care if it's the Democrats or the Republicans or who they are. They're right on principle. And so I'm not picking enemies out of Donald Trump. I'm not trying to pick the Democratic side. I'm not picking any side, neither is the good doctor. The fact is we're trying to educate you to this principle. We're trying to educate you to understand. I don't care who's on what side of the issue. We want to be on the right side of the issue, and we want to make sure we take the time to give you enough of the story so that you become truly educated. We got to educate hearts and minds to where I don't want you just to go, oh, I heard that from Sam. He's whacked out, but I heard what he had to say. No, I want you to contemplate what we say. I want you to think about what we're delivering and why. And I want you to understand there's no way to do it in these short form soundbite clips that go viral. It's a dig in, educational, collegiate kind of situation. And so, Dr. Bradley, your comments are long. That's a fact. I just joked about it. But the fact is they're vitally critical. And if we don't do it now, how will the next generation know? How will they know? They won't. So, Dr. Bradley, yes, you're long-winded. You're also spot on, sir.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, there's so much to be said about this. We could spend the full time. I used to go around to military bases and speak on lawful orders. And I found a vast spectrum of opinions and some very strongly held, violent opinions about it. There were arrogant officers that wanted to be obeyed regardless. They'd shoot you on the spot if you didn't. And the law is clearly stated. It's in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's in international protocols and all these kinds of things. And the Congress has the responsibility for creating those kinds of things. So these people have
Sheriff
put this.
Richard Mack, by the way, beat Bill Clinton over this very discussion, sir.
He did. And in fact, I wish someday in the near future we could talk at some length about that again, because what's going on in Minneapolis and some of those places, in my opinion, violates that decision, that Mack Prince decision. But nevertheless, so Congress creates these laws for the military. They're the gatekeeper, if you will. And then there's Article 1, Section 6, wherein it prevents the executive from coming into the legislature and cleaning house and arresting people and all this kind of stuff. You can read the rules of engagement there, and you should. But the fact of the matter is that the administration immediately and instantaneously ramped this up to the death penalty. I mean, we have Trump and we have Vance and we have Hegseth. Everybody has said, get the noose out.
Now, let me stop you for a second. And if they say that, and they've sworn an oath to the supreme law of the land in their demands to obey unlawful orders, they violated their oath of office as well, sir.
Indeed, they have. And so what's happening, though, the thing that prompted this question, I think, is that a federal grand jury has just ruled that the administration's wrong and they're not bringing charges against these 6 individuals. Now, they're looking for other ways to do that. Even might take Mark Kelly, who's a retired Navy captain, so an 06, and try and take him down through another methodology. But the members of the legislature have a duty and a responsibility, and they did not specifically charge anybody to violate this or that or the other order. They said, don't disobey unlawful orders, which is a completely accurate way of putting it. Now, what happened was a federal grand jury says, there's nothing here to indict. What are you idiots talking about? Now, Trump's all chepped about that. But if we start the administration arresting people out of the House and the Senate because they have decided it's a treasonous thing. Now, treason is defined in Article 3, and absolutely the treason did not occur. So this kind of thing is, they ramp it up, they amp it up. Somebody needs to take a chill pill into that administration and say, guys, look what happened when you sent the goons in with full body armor, M16s, M4s, SIGs on their hips, grenade launchers, and you used those people to go against Americans, and it turned upside down and backwards. Holman, in a way, has dialed it back the way it should have been to begin with. But I'm telling you, if the administration, the highest office in the land, is calling for lynchings, in essence, he didn't say it in those words.
Hold on a minute. I hold the highest office of the land, sir. I'm called an American citizen, and they all work for me, sir.
You got that right, but they don't think so.
I agree, but I want to teach correct principles. And so Donald is my and your employee, sir.
He is indeed, but he builds
right
a lot
and
of.
quit attacking people. He attacks Thomas Massey relentlessly, and it's got to stop because Massey sticks with the Constitution. He attacks now these people because they say don't obey unlawful orders. I agree, don't obey unlawful orders, folks. None of us should do that. If we had gone through the world's history and not obeyed unlawful orders, just think how many lives would be saved, Doctor.
Unquestionably, and vast offenses against humanity, Auschwitz, and I mean, name the death camps and the gulags and the
just imagine Holodomor as well, and some of these others.
Absolutely, all of these things are horrifically bad, and the American founding fathers tried to establish a framework that could be, things could be carried out without violating
relied
morality.
on.
It's what?
Right? A framework that could be relied on.
Absolutely. And that's the thing we're talking about. We have a couple of centuries plus of very valid, very tried and true principles. And because somebody has heartburn over something and feels like they weren't personally bowed to and scraped at and the ring was kissed, you can't just throw this thing. It's not Caesar.
No, you've got to stand up on the principle. So, Donald, we love you, buddy. You've done a lot of good, but on this one, you're wrong. And we hope, and this is why I started out the show saying, if you're wrong on something, you got to be humble enough to be willing to change your opinion, Doctor. And Donald and Hegseth and some of these people, J.D. Vance, they're flat out wrong on this one. Not because I want to pick sides, but because the principle is if it's unlawful, if you follow those orders, you become a vessel to carry out unlawful mandates. And every time that turns into either the loss of life, the loss of liberty, okay, it's disaster. And so we need to have people stand up, and I don't care if the Democrats are right on this one. I don't care who's right or wrong. I want to be right. I want to tell the truth. I want to stick with the principle. And this principle is critical. And that's why we're spending so much time on it. We've literally almost spent an hour on this one topic. It's two related issues, but it relates. The two are identical. We don't want to go negative. The solution is to only obey lawful orders. The solution is to keep your oath of office. That's why the founders framed it that way, Doctor.
They did. And sadly, we have these, I wish we had time to talk about populism. Trump's a populist.
We got time to talk about anything we want.
Well, yeah, maybe so, but I'm telling you, there's a time clock on this thing all the time.
There is, but you got to just decide what topics we think are the most relevant and important, and this one's critical in my mind.
Well, and the problem is that, a populism, you say, well, yeah, that's good to a point, but if it becomes an anarchistic kind of thing, where the leader's word becomes the law of the land, if you will, we have strayed so far, the republic is in danger of being lost. And
Amen. And that's what the judges are doing right now, Doctor. Instead of pointing to the law, they kind of act like, I am the law. That's the shift we're talking about, right?
That's what Fauci did. I am the science. And they basically accrue to themselves, or arrogate to themselves is even a better term, this omniscience and this power and everything else like that. No, there are limits and bounds for everybody. And it's very interesting to me that the founders
thank heavens there are, sir.
The founders understood this so clearly. I mean, you read Blackstone, and you read Montesquieu, you read Locke, and they tie it back to the laws of nature and nature's God. And they bound the people by the chains of a constitution to do that. And when we as a people decide, hey, he's my man. No, our loyalty does not run to a man. Our loyalty runs to the principles. And you've said that several different ways this morning. But the problem is that we as a people, I'm absolutely confident. I wish Sheriff Richard Mack was on this little show with us to talk about Mack Prince, this Supreme Court decision from 1997. And it's a clear-cut case that's what's happening across the nation is a violation by the federals on that. But just because Republicans are doing it doesn't make it right.
And everybody thinks because it's Donald, it's fine. But remember, that double-edged sword backfires, ladies and gentlemen. Just remember this. If you're on the right side of a principle, you're in good company. That's all I've got to say. The Founding Fathers really worked this out to a great solution. It's called the Supreme Law of the Land, the Constitution. And it is the document to keep a free people free until the Savior returns, ladies and gentlemen. I guarantee that the Savior lives and that he will return. The question is, will we be the 5 virgins that are ready when he does? I pray the answer is a resounding yes. Great work, Dr. Bradley. This historical context and this topic is critical because so many topics are downstream from this one, right? LovingLiberty.net, FreedomsRisingSun.com. God save the Republic of the United States of America.